We're going to call to order the Effingham County Board of Commissioners meeting this February 4th, 2020, and it's 5 o'clock. Let's give everyone, if you please rise for the invocation and name standing for the pledge of allegiance. Gracious Father, we are so thankful again to come together in this community with these leaders who give such tireless service for the community. I thank you for them. Just pray you bless and give back the time that they give here and all during the week. Thank you for these constituents who have come out of interest. We pray that as we hear the business of the county and we make decisions, that we will have your wisdom and make those decisions that are pleasing to you and good for our people. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have our agenda before us tonight. Are there any corrections or additions to the agenda?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, there are several changes tonight. So under the planning board items listed, starting on page 1, so staff has requested and has also received a request to withdraw items number 1 through 4. These items are related to Tracy Marsh Construction to rezone 17.50 acres located at 2388 Highway 80 from AR1 to industrial. This item has been withdrawn from the agenda. It will not be heard tonight. Additionally, under new business number 2, this is a consideration to approve a final plat and warranty deed for Park West. This item has been requested by staff to be tabled to February 18th. That's our next meeting. And the final item is under new business number 4. This is a consideration to approve a resolution to amend the 2019-2020 budget. This item is to be tabled until February 18th as well. These are your changes.
Motion to approve the agenda with the said changes.
We have a motion and a second, just to make sure everybody in my sheet, we are withdrawing number 1, 2, and 3, and 4 from the planning board. We are tabling new business number 2 and new business number 4 to the 18th.
That is correct.
All in favor of the motion, second, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. It carries. And then go back, motion by Mr. Welch, second by you. Mr. Kiefer? Okay. Very good. We have the minutes before us. We have consideration to approve the January 21st, 2020 commissioner meetings. Is there any changes or corrections to minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Deloach, second Mr. Wolper to approve the minutes as presented. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Okay. I want to welcome everyone tonight who's here. If you're here for one public hearing, items will not be heard tonight, so if you want to recess, you can. You can stay and enjoy the rest of the meeting, that's fine. I'll give you a moment to come back to you.
Thanks, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you. For the remaining folks, the public, we appreciate you being here tonight. I'm asking you to keep public comments on the agenda items to 2 or 3 minutes, and that'll give everyone a chance to share if wants to have an opportunity to share tonight or speak to an item on the agenda. All the documents for this meeting are located in the clerk's office, and they're also on the Board of Commissioners website, so everyone's had a chance to review or ready to discuss now. Before we get started, we have some special introductions. I'm going to ask our county manager if you'd like to make some introductions for us tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We've got a couple of folks here. First off, after a national search, the Effingham Chamber of Commerce has hired a new CEO, and he's joining us this evening. His name is Andy Cripps, and we welcome him to Effingham County, and hope to be working with you in the future. And also, we've got just hired, first day was yesterday, our new engineer slash development services director, Mr. Charlie George, joins us after a short stint of retirement, but prior to that worked primarily at Thomas & Hutton. So we welcome him aboard as well.
Welcome to both, and if either would like to make a comment, Mr. Andy, if you'd like to say anything, we'll begin.
Thank you. I just wanted to say Mr. Callanan has been very gracious with his time and helping me get oriented. I'm originally from New Jersey by way of Virginia, so this is a little bit of an adjustment for me. I've been at it almost a month now, but it's been terrific, and we're off to, I think, a really good start to the new year. Really looking forward to Effingham Day at the Capitol next Monday and Tuesday, and getting to spend some time with you and other officials from here in the county. So again, thanks very much.
We look forward to our time together this weekend. Good to have you tonight. With that, we'll move through our agenda. We have a consent agenda of one item, CMOU, consideration to approve a memorandum of understanding between Effingham County Board of Commissioners / EMS and for life and medical education services. A motion to approve the consent agenda.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Kiefer, second Mr. Deloach, to approve the consent agenda as presented. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion carries. Under old business, we have a number 5 on the planning board. Planning board recommends approving the application by Richard and Debbie McIntosh for a variance to occupy a camper as a temporary dwelling during the construction of a residence located at 1157 Harry Lindsay Road in that 236 parcel number 5D in the 3rd district. And so we'll open a public hearing on this.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. and Ms. McIntosh was granted a variance on November 6, 2018 for a camper as a temporary dwelling during the construction of a residence. Since that variance expired, they are requesting a second variance for the camper as a temporary dwelling. As of this date, there has been no application submitted for the house construction. The planning board is recommending approval of the variance for 6 months starting December 16, 2019, and contingent on an application for a building permit for the home. Staff recommends alternative 2, denial as no permit has been filed.
Okay. Is there anyone tonight wanting to speak for this variance?
My name is Richard McIntosh, and I'm a resident now at 1157 Harry Lindsay Road in Guyton. I didn't quite hear everything that she had to say, but I understand that the planning board has approved, or recommended rather, another 6 months for the variance. I didn't hear anything mentioned about the permit being passed for the building that we're constructing on site now. Is there anything on that?
Do you want to address that? I know it's in the detail.
It's in your details, but they, that had started prior to the application for the residence, and it was, actually it was governed, and code enforcement went out and issued a stop work order due to the construction of the application for the home not being in place. And so there was good with that.
In short, my understanding was until the construction for the home was issued, there would be no permit issued for the construction of a side building.
Right, they were only issued the variance for the camper with the home application for the home.
Some of the reasons that we haven't gotten the permit for the home is that we're building a steel building home, and there's been a lot of details that haven't been worked out. We've got those worked out. We've put a down payment on the building itself. We have just secured our loan. And we've got the root mat tore up or got out of the way for the building pad itself, and we're hoping to be building up the pad on that in the next week or two. So we definitely are building a home there.
What was the building that was being built?
We had from the same company, we bought a steel building kit. We're building it primarily for storage. Right now, we've got a lot of our home furnishings and everything in 2 storage units, and we were hoping to be able to build this building, to put that into the building, our furniture and everything, so we could quit paying the storage payments.
I guess I'm not sure why the home permit has not been requested before now.
He just stated he's doing
A steel metal
a
building.
pad though.
Yes, we are.
You're not supposed to even do that without a permit.
That was never
That is the
indicated
beginning
to
of
us.
your construction is your permit. You get your permit filed and then you can start any groundwork.
So right now, they're trying to put a pad for a metal building for a home.
It's not as of yet, but we were planning on doing that soon, but I didn't realize that was covered under the permit.
When do you plan on getting a permit?
The company that we're getting the steel building from, they supply all the plans, including the foundation plans, and they're going to be sending me preliminary drawings within the next couple of weeks, and then we're going to have stamped plans by next month. So I'm hoping that we can get the permit in by next month.
Maybe small questions for you if you want to hang around, see the front.
Sure.
You want to see
So financing's in place?
Yes.
Building's in place to come, everything will be done in 6 months.
I don't know if we can get it done in 6 months, but we're going to try every effort to, rain has a lot to do with that problem, but that's what our plans are.
You gotta have a building permit before you do anything with what she's telling you. You need to get a building permit and then you can start working on it. Your plans and all, we can look at them later.
But once your plans come in, you'll submit those to Health Department and Building and Zoning, correct?
I was understanding that you had to have the stamped plans in with the permit. Am I wrong on that?
Well, you gotta have plans to get the permit, from my understanding.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be able to get those plans stamped as been required until next month.
Okay.
Yeah, if it's a pre-engineered structure, it'll have to be engineered.
Right.
That okay.
Is that all you need from me right now?
We might want to have a seat right there. I want to see if anyone wants to speak against this variance tonight.
Sure.
Anyone else speaking for it? Anyone tonight speaking against this variance? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing and see if there's any further discussion or questions among the board. I have concerns I just left up that we don't have a permit issued yet. To me, there are RV parks are available. The variances we usually give, when someone has a permit and they start building, we give up to a year to build it home. At this point, there's no guarantee there'll even be an improvement of any kind. Even since the note, I saw the October 9th date, you would have thought from that point on it had been expeditiously sought to get a engineering approved or whatever the permit. So my first inclination is thinking that there are no parks for this type of home until you have a home being built. Submit to whatever the board desires. I'm a little concerned about creating a variance from a building permit. Don't have anything approved to build anything. It took another 30, 40 days. I don't think you can build a metal structure and get it all done. And the utilities inside the house, you get a building, you get more. It'd be tough to do that additional 4 months. So, those are my concerns. I'll see if the board has any other question, discussion, or if they want to approve or according to staff recommendations, approve alternative 2, which is to reject, deny.
Is it possible to do a 60-day variance and get a chance to produce a building permit?
As soon as you do that, say in 60 days, have a,
Just give them variance for a 60-day period of time, give them time to bring it up.
And then he'd have to come back
You
again.
have to come back again,
But you can just come straight to us then,
and
right?
they can produce building permits.
I think you can, that's, yeah, I like that. Give them 60 days to get the engineering done, design,
Yeah.
get a building
Get a
permit.
completed application in the development services. To get the completed application to the development services.
Yes.
60 days to get his stuff together, and
His
then
building
he'll build
permit.
it and get a permit for the building he's gonna build.
So your question is, if he doesn't, then he can come back to you for an extension of the variance?
Well, they would come back for approval or denial for a continued variance.
Yeah,
He
extension.
can't come to you, he'd have to go back to
Start with the
planning board.
process.
Aren't we changing that?
No, that's all it
No,
is.
no.
Okay. So you have to come
They
back.
did recommend, the planning board recommended it anyway, so we could
So
approve it for 2 months and then come back to the
well,
process.
basically, he would have 2 months to get it done and get before the planning board. Is that correct?
I guess one other option would be to table it tonight for 60 days on the condition he provides information related to the building permit, maybe a letter from his bank.
Right, that's good.
just to see
That
if
does put him
progress-
out of compliance right now for 60 days, right? He's living
That's the
there.
downside.
And that's the only way I see what you're saying.
Right, but I think that's going to be the condition. I mean, yeah, this is from 2018, did I get that right? When did this start?
They actually moved the mobile home, the camper in March of 2019.
That's not correct.
That's what y'all told us.
Sir, you come to the microphone to respond.
Granted on 2018.
That we were told at the beginning that we needed to go ahead and get a variance. We weren't able to move in onto the property with our trailer until we had water and sewage. And that took several more months, so it was like the middle of last year before we was actually to be able to move in with the trailer.
How do you get water and sewer on a lot?
Your wife knows in March of 2019. is when
Well,
y'all moved the camper.
I might be a
I got
little,
a question. How do you get water and sewer approved without a construction permit? How's the health department issue that?
Honestly, I can't answer that. I'm sorry.
Did you get approved from the health department to
Yes.
put sewer out there?
yes. They should have the records on that.
Teresa, you might can shed the light, because it was going on before I got on board, so.
And just to be clear, that's a state agency, that's not a
The
county.
application first needs to be, and I've never heard anything about this when I was.
So I would think that'd be something through us.
Yeah, I know that our building permit would not be released until that was satisfied with the health department, but I don't know if it's reciprocated the other way. I don't know if, is it the chicken or the egg? Well, somebody's got to act first, and it's always been the health department.
Sure, but I was thinking the health department has to have
It's
their
both
specs
ways,
of
Bill.
the plan.
There's that understanding, it's both ways. One
Is it really?
typically doesn't do without.
Because they have to have what's going to be there,
Right.
so they can determine how much drain field you have to have. I mean, they got to know what's going on.
Well, that's true, yeah. How many bedrooms, that's all in the calculation.
Yeah, so unless that was done, I don't know how you got to be able to do a septic system.
We got to look into it, Mr. Chairman.
How about we table it for 30 days so we can look into it and see if everything on this current septic system has been properly permitted through the agency and ratified by us, where it has to be done legally? Because I think there's a connection, like she said, between the building permit.
I might have some of that paperwork in a trailer that I can fax or send to you in an email or
And
whatever.
I'm sure Diane can probably get that pretty easy from the health department.
And when did you say the engineering would be done? In a couple of weeks?
I'm hoping that we'll get the stamped plans by next month. We should get some preliminary drawings fairly soon that won't be stamped. They'll be sending us preliminary drawings to make sure everything is correct the way that we want it. And if we approve it, then, you know, I'll have those set of drawings.
Does he have to have stamped plans in order to get that building permit?
On the structure.
He could have like a foundation plan.
Probably down stamp the whole town,
We've been told that
you know.
the structure and the foundation had to be stamped.
Today is February 5th, so when's our first meeting in March?
March the 3rd.
March the 3rd, that'll give you 30 days. What do you think about that, 60 days? Because it's non-compliance now, it hasn't been for many months. 30 days to secure those stamps, get the documentation that he even has a right to have a septic system out there.
If we go 30 days and if you can show some correspondence with your company,
Sure.
you know, the company
You can
that
always
you're,
extend it to the-
you know,
you can take it
I would
one
feel
time.
better.
Well, Mr. Blake said it brings that, it's pretty far of money.
All right, we want to try to work with, I'm going to ask for a motion to table for 30 days to let you clear up the sewer and water. It's out there. We'll have-
I have to verify or get that straightened out.
Clarify, because that should only been issued when there was some kind of building given to the health department. They have a document, I go out there, they have a document of a plat, I mean, bedrooms.
Right.
And that's what they go out and determine where the septic system's gonna be based on the home that's out there. Or will be out there.
That wasn't presented to us that way.
That's in the application. So I know, I'd like to see all that, so we just need to get documentation to make sure we're in compliance right now, and then work on the things related to the stamp, and let's see where we are in 30 days. So I'm asking for a motion to advance for 30 days, and, no penalties for violations for 30 days until come back on March the 3rd. Okay? So I have a motion table for 30 days while we clarify where we're at.
And you're wanting for me to get the stamp plans by then?
Yes, sir. You try to get everything you can done, because right now you're non-compliance.
Okay.
Morris trying to work with you.
I appreciate
We gotta
that.
make sure there's gonna be a design and construction going on, and we're gonna have everybody want to put more homes on vacant lots and put some plumbing in, and that's, gonna do that, okay?
And as far as the other building, that's not going to get approved until we get the house plans permitted?
That's correct, that's on hold too. We'll see where we're at in 30 days.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
I'll make a motion to table this for 30 days.
Second.
Motion to table till
March 3rd.
March 3rd. All, and a second. Mr. Wilkie, all in favor say aye. All opposed, no. And it carries. So we won't have a second reading. So we'll go into our old business, and I think we have an audit presentation that was tabled on January 21st.
Copy of the special.
Do you need me to bring it up?
He's got it.
He's got it.
You don't have a copy? I'll get you one. Okay, good evening. Christy Carpenter, Finance Director. We have wrapped up the fiscal year 19 audit. I'm not going to take up much of your time. I'm just going to quickly review some of the results of that audit, and then I will turn it over to our auditors for their comments. So our operating revenues, governmental funds saw a 1.34% increase. Enterprise funds saw 11.71% decrease in revenues. And some of that is from the movement of the cost recovery fees that were moved out of operating. So in this chart, you're going to see general fund revenues drop and special tax jump up, and that's a result of the movement we made from roads and rec and parks from general fund into special tax district. For our operating expenses, the governmental funds saw a decrease of 0.17%, and the enterprise funds increased by 0.8%. So pretty steady. And again, here you'll see that same movement of those funds from general fund to special tax district in the expenses. Fund balances, governmental funds, fund balance increased 7.84%, and the enterprise funds decreased by 0.3%. General fund had a 15.04% increase in total fund balance, so that now sits at $13.3 million. If you remember last year, you approved us to do some additional investments into LGIP. Those monies started in January of 19 through the end of the fiscal year. You can see that we saw some really good results. Governmental funds in 2018 were $133,000. 2019, they're almost $430,000. And the enterprise funds in 18 were about $2,700. In 19, it was almost $90,000. So last year, as you saw, roads and rec and parks and landscape moved fully into the special tax district fund. Ash Road repairs continued. Effingham Parkway continues to move forward. General funds, total fund balance, as I mentioned, is now at $13.3 million, so that's 48% of our annual expenditures. And the unassigned fund balance is at 6.1, which is about 22% of annual expenditures, and we would like to get that closer to 25, but we're in really good shape there. Last year we submitted for 15 grants. We were awarded 13 of those for a total of $1.2 million, which did not include any matched dollars by the county. So the auditors have completed their review and their audit. They've given us an unmodified opinion. There was one finding pertaining to a county agency, which they will give you some information on. But overall, fiscal year 19 was a very good year for us. As you have time to review your statements, if you have any questions, reach out to us. We'll be glad to answer them. But at this time, I will turn the presentation over to our auditors from Lanier Dillon Proctor. We have Ms. Kay Proctor and Wesley Cohn with us tonight.
Good evening, everybody. As she mentioned, Wesley is here with me tonight. Since we're kind of keeping it short and sweet, I'm just going to come up to the podium. Wesley's worked with us on this engagement for the past 6 years. Appreciate him doing that. Appreciate Mark and Christy doing such a good job getting everything to us this year. I also enjoyed our meeting with Tim yesterday and getting to meet him, and look forward to working with you in the future. I'm going to keep it very high level, and not really, since Christy went over a lot of stuff, especially on the fund level financial statements. I'm really just going to point out a few things on your first two statements, your government-wide statements, which are your full accrual basis financial statements. You look, your first three columns are your primary government. You'll see your total assets at approximately $174 million. That includes your fixed assets, which is not something that you see on your fund level financial statements. It's a little bit different. Also coming down, you're gonna see total liabilities for the government of $40,378,000. And again, because these are your a full accrual basis financial statements, this is gonna include your bonds payable, your notes payable, all your long-term liabilities in addition to your current liabilities. So, page 14.
You said 40 million?
14, yes.
Oh, 14, okay.
Sorry about that. Is everybody there now?
Yes.
Okay. So again, your total assets approximately 174 million, including your fixed assets of 126 million. And I'm in the third column. And then your total liabilities, $40,378,000. That $10,562,000 of your liabilities relate to your governmental activities. That's going to be your general fund and your SPLOST funds, and then your other small special revenue funds. The majority of your liabilities are going to be on your business type activities, which is going to include the bonds payable. That's going to be your water and sewer fund, your wastewater treatment plant, sanitation. So looking at your total net position, which is, what we in business call equity, your total assets minus your liabilities, you'll see $133 million. Now of that, $9.6 million is unrestricted. You have $100 million invested in capital assets. You've got some restricted for the unincorporated area. For capital projects, that's going to be your SPLOST fund. You've got some for debt service and other purposes. So $9.6 million is your unrestricted fund balance. Now, if you come over to page 15, which is your statement of activities, it's your income statement, government-wide on accrual basis. This is going to include your interest income and your depreciation. In the first column, you're going to see total expenses for the primary government of $58 million. Your $9.6 million in unrestricted net position is approximately 17% of that number on an accrual basis. And just to point that out, still in a good place as far as net position goes, even on an accrual basis. Again, Christy pointed out that you have approximately 22% in unrestricted fund balance on your general fund expenditures compared to the prior year's expenditures. That is a good, healthy percentage. People's ideas about that vary. Some say 25%, some go up to 50%. That's just a matter of what that county or what that municipality chooses. However, remember, you also have the $4.2 million that's been committed as economic stabilization. So it puts you in a good position for future growth. Christy mentioned investment income, and I wanted to point out on the statement of activities while I was here, because it stuck out at me. Your investment earnings on your statement of activities are going to be down towards the bottom, and if you're looking at these statements later, you're going to see $335,000 in investment income on this statement. And that is because it's just one of those weird GASB things, one of those things they make us accountants do. The interest income on the SPLOST funds have to be recorded as capital grants and contributions. And if you do not reclass that interest income to that column for some reason, you will get a finding from the Department of Audits on your financial statement. So if anybody's trying to reconcile those two numbers, I just wanted to point that out.
What did you say our fund balance was last year? 22%, 2019?
2019, 6.1 million, 22%.
Of general fund expenditures.
Okay.
That's on the fund level, though, not the government-wide accrual basis.
On the fund level, it went up about
Well, that's the number we
1.7
live and die by. That's what the-
That's right. That's right.
That's where our bond rating is tied to as well. What was that year before? 2018?
Fund balance statements, 11.6, 13.35. I'm looking at
13.35 between the two?
Oh, yeah, it would be on the MD&A.
you looking at it, what page?
No, I thought she referenced the number from 2018. I thought she had that available.
Well, under the general fund statements. Page,
I can ask later, but I didn't want to make it complicated. I was
Yeah.
trying to see, I know that's an important number, but I was just curious what it was last year.
page 18, you got it? is the actual fund balance we have available to budget fund. It was 11.6 the previous year, it was 13.356. This year.
Yeah, and if you're looking at that number compared to 2018, that'll be in the MD&A for last year's audited financial statement. So that's something that Christy can really easily pull for you. And I know a lot of governments look at the fund level financial statements, and you're right, that's kind of your modified cash basis, and it's what you live and die by. But it's good to look every now and then at the government wide as well, because it really provides more of a long-term picture, if that makes any sense.
You know what's in the other purposes in the position statement?
I'm sorry? The other purposes is going to basically be all of your additional special revenue funds. Your special revenue funds are all restricted in some manner unless they have a negative fund balance, and then in that case they're unassigned. Before I discuss the finding briefly, does anybody have any other questions? Christy went through the fund level financial statement, so unless there's questions on those, I won't hit on those a lot. And if not, I'll go ahead and discuss a little about the finding.
Go ahead.
Okay, the finding we have is related to the tax commissioner's office. We did have a finding related to the tax commissioner's office last year as well. We do feel like all of the money that's coming into the tax commissioner's office and going out of the tax commissioner's office is being receipted and going to the right place. The problem that we're seeing when we go in and do the audit has to do with the actual bookkeeping for those transactions. The tax commissioner has their software that they use to manage the money coming in, and then also how much needs to be dispersed out. Then they also use QuickBooks to put the money in, make sure that they've got their checks in. They use that to reconcile their bank statements. And we're just, for the past few years, we've seen some issues with transfers in between funds, just not being recorded correctly and things being misclassed. And it makes it hard for those agencies to determine their cash balance, and also to make sure that they're not overshort. Because a big part of your constitutional officers and the accounting in those offices, the biggest part and what makes them unique, is the fact that if you have $5,000 in the bank at the end of the year, you should know exactly who that $5,000 is owed to. You should either have some funds in escrow, or you should have checks written in July, that equal up to that amount. So in order to do that and make sure that that's correct, it's important to have proper bank reconciliations and know what your true cash balance is. It's something, I know they've had some transition in that office over the last couple of years in bookkeeping, and maybe some staff out for periods of time. So I think it's something they are working towards correcting. And again, not an issue where we feel like any money has gone to the wrong place or not been receipted. Just a matter of getting that bookkeeping cleaned up so that they can manage it.
Does the bank reconciliations not being performed correctly? Or not?
They're being performed, but they may have, for example, stale items on them that are not appropriate, transfers perhaps that are showing as outstanding when they're not really, because maybe they weren't recorded correctly, things like that.
So it's balanced, it's categorically incorrect.
They're looking at it, I think they're looking at it to see that all the transactions are in. It's just they're not being coded just right when they're coming in.
If the transfers are not recorded correctly, how is that not impacting what agencies are receiving?
They, when we go in and we audit, we're going to look at that bank reconciliation, and if the bank reconciliation says the cash balance is $50,000, we're going to look at all those outstanding items and back out what we need to make sure that everything's in. In addition, we take, after we look and kind of back out what needs to be backed out, we compare the collections per QuickBooks. Once we make, any corrections that need to be corrected, we compare that to the tax commissioner's software to make sure that all the money has in fact gone in the account. There was some additional work required on the tax commissioner's office this year.
What would you recommend as an action item to help that going forward?
Sure. We spoke about this yesterday when we met, and I think there are probably some courses that perhaps the staff could take on bookkeeping. I was telling them, I can't remember exactly which organization had it, whether it was something that ACCG had or maybe the Clerk's Authority, but somewhere I've seen QuickBooks for constitutional officers. You know, that it's a course that maybe handles some of the things that are unique, because it is very different than bookkeeping for a small business, you know. So, but it is useful, and it's cost efficient, and it's easy to use. So a lot of your constitutional officers do utilize it, but it is a little bit different than, you know, what it was designed for in small business. That would be my recommendation, is additional training. And I think Chrissy's office is willing to help in any way that they can.
But all the agencies got the monies they were supposed to get according to what was taken in?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And that's another thing we do. We export all the activity and compare it to the reports that are generated from the tax commissioner software to make sure those match up. So we do feel that that happened.
We might have some follow-up discussion on this item to better understand.
And if there's any further questions for me, you know, please just let me know. I'll be glad to help in any way I can. Okay.
There's a couple of things in order I want to bring to the board's attention. I think are good for us to notice. This year, the accountants have reclassed the cost recovery fees. You saw that into the below the line as a non-operating, used to as a charge for services. But as I was looking at my county manager, it gives a truer picture of what our operation is. We are losing $1 million on our sewer system operation. If you have the service, we're losing more than that at 1.3 million. You put the cost recovery into it, just make sure you have a good understanding of this. It looks like we're not losing so much. It looks like we're getting out of control. And I say this to say this, we as a board have got to look at only $118,000 annually in revenues from our sewer fund, and not what the expenses were spending.
What are we spending in relation to that?
And in relation to that, we are spending 1.2 million, and we're taking in 1 million. So we're losing a little over $1 million a year. So we've got to be strategic in how we plan, because these cost recovery fees are really supposed to be used to replace your current system. But we're using them to operate our fund. And so we got to get with Christie and figure out, you know, where do we need to put sewer lines, where do you make investments. And I said to say this, you know, we've been improving some density lately. It's important that we look for density and improve it, because that's the only way you're going to heal this, is to have the revenues. So what's happening in Belmont Lane and Goshen Road, all these places, we got these 60-inch lines. If we can get, it's going to be a combination of more users, investment. We need some
Minimizing the investment per user by density and
kind of doing our water now.
Yeah.
We're looping it, putting what we think growth would be. We've got to look at that. So do we need to put some money invested here so that in the 5 years we have 1,700 more users? And we got general revenues, because 500 users is probably going to be probably double our revenues.
In other words, we've done the infrastructure and paid for that, but there's not enough cost recovery from the new development to cover it.
Yeah, we're paying for it. We're paying $302,000 just in interest expense. So just, that's why it's important. I appreciate you taking the cost recovery and moving down the low line, because it gives us a good picture of what our actual operating cost or loss is. Maybe look at rates. You keep them on watching that. The other thing I've asked.
Would it be okay if I added something really quickly while we're on that line? The interest expense actually is, that 302 is just for wastewater treatment plants. So the total is $768,000. But one thing that's kind of different about the proprietary funds when you look at these statements is, you know, when you're looking at the general fund, you're saying this is the cash that I live and die by. And GASB requires us to report the business type activities on full accrual basis no matter what. So your losses do include depreciation, whereas if you look at a fund level financial statement of revenues and expenses for the general fund, you're not going to have that depreciation in there. I think it's important to look at depreciation again when you're looking at your loss, because it's part of that long-term focus, and eventually you know, people have different schools of thought on that, but eventually you're gonna have to start repairing that equipment. But when you're looking at it, another good statement to look at, I'd recommend is page 25, which is the statement of cash flows. I like this statement because it tells you up at the top, you'll see, for example, net cash provided and used by operating activities. And you'll see for water and sewer, you've got 100,000 generated by operating activities, but then you're losing cash for operating activities on the other side on the wastewater treatment plant. And you can also come down and you can see what your I'll point out also the purchase of investments. That's got to do with the stuff that Christy pointed out in here. But you can also see your debt service on here and how that impacts your cash. So as you're having these conversations about rate changes, I think this is a meaningful statement. Sorry, I just wanted to point, I thought about that as you were talking.
The cash flow is really good. And that's my concern, is that I know depreciation's here, because in the business world, you want to include depreciation. For example, right now we have a $10 million wastewater treatment facility that is, what, 15, 20 years old? So we know there's going to be a couple $1 million in just rehabbing the headworks, lining the channels, and redundancies. And there's going to be a lot of things we're going to need to do. And we're spending our cost recovery, which should be used to cover that depreciation. We're spending it in bills. And so we're okay. We've changed things in the last 3 or 4 years. Refinancing debt and all, cash flow wise, and what this shows is we're not dying. But what if you had an economy that crashed like it did in 2009, no more cost recoveries, and you had to live on $118,000 a year? It wouldn't be good. So fortunately, we have hopefully a good state of the union that tells our economy's still growing, we're going to still have development, but we've got to be strategic in how we plan the next 5 years to see if we can't. We've got a cash flow. Jamie helped us do that with our refinancing and all in our water and sewer. But we got to really be conscious that next 5 years we need to be at a break even on these things. We can do it through the right investments, hopefully small rate increases. We don't want to get out of line with other counties and cities by any means. But it's just some work here, and by reclassifying that, it gives us some idea of the work we need to do. So just want to make sure the board is aware of that. We can look at that.
Is this something we can identify in certain areas where we spend the money on that infrastructure? We know we need density in this area to cover those new areas where we put in pipe?
Yeah, I talked to Tim about, we want to get our sewer maps out now, where our 36-inch line is, and then I think it goes all the way to Blue Jay Road, and I think it takes a right down there to some subdivisions. Do we need to go left? Is there some good development land?
Right.
We got somebody wanting to put some development on 17, but not far from there. We talked about the transportation meeting, putting a line at the roundabout before the state does that, so we're not tearing it up, make it cost 3 times as much. Get that line in there now before we do it. But now's the time to look at it.
Should we communicate that to IDA? Development to an IDA, look for land and so forth, and kind of, okay, this is a good area. It's already been serviced for the lines in.
Yep. Yeah, we're looking at our water lines, so just got to do it.
That's not huge.
We got to do our sewer. We're going to be through it on water this year. It'll be looped, we'll be ready for growth. But we still have some work on sewer. So water's going to make more money, and that's going to help us pay for the sewer, because you can kind of look at it as a whole as far as the net profit, but it's good to go ahead and make sure we look at wastewater a little bit separate too, make sure we don't just fund it out of our water. So, the other thing I asked them to look at is this, and they're going to look at that together, talk to Christy about our land post-closure, landfill post-closure. We got like 1.6 million in that. And I know back in the 80s, I think when we closed that thing, I was in audit back then. It was a 30-year post-closure. We had to get the present value of the annuity to get that in there. I'm just wondering, we'll make sure that we still need to put that 1.6 million there. There may be some money there. Because all we're doing now is a little monitoring. And we got a certificate of closure. I don't know what that means. So they're going to pull that for us. If we can have that before our board meeting on this weekend, it'd be good to kind of look at that. Just a couple observations.
And one thing on that landfill post-closure, you'll see, And I didn't go over them, but the reconciling items in between your government-wide statements and your fund level, that liability is only on your government-wide activities. That's a reconciling item, so it's on there. And like I mentioned to Chairman Corbett, we've got an EPD report that's sent to us every year that says this is your liability, so we'll be glad to share that and make sure we're all on the same page.
Christie, do you have another copy yet, what we spend annually on monitoring the landfill?
Not
Don't
off the
worry
top of
about
my
it.
head, but I'll get it for you.
We'll look at that. I'm pretty sure the president recommended it might be that amount, we'll look at that. Thank you, good job, appreciate you.
Thank y'all very much.
Is there other questions? I don't think that needs any action, does it?
We do, we need to vote, and it may be the next item.
On the next item, we need to agree to go ahead and allow the audit. All right. So consideration to approve the audit or receive the audit and submit it to the state of Georgia. That's all we need to do.
That's all we need to do.
Make a motion to approve alternative one.
Motion to approve alternative one by Mr. Deloach, second by Mr. Keeper. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Carries.
Thank you.
Item number 3, consideration to approve to amend 5.01 full-time water and resource practice.
Good evening, Vicki Dunn, HR Director. Third time's the charm. I missed the last commission meeting, but what we've done now is gone through and clarified what our holiday pay actually is equal to, and it's 8 hours of straight time. We don't pay double time or time and a half for holiday pay. So it just simply means 8 hours of straight time. So what this policy would do would be allow an employee to, instead of taking the 8 hours of holiday pay at straight time, move it from the actual holiday to another day when they're better able to use it. Did that clarify, Mr. Corbett, what you needed, sir?
I looked at it, you and I talked extensively. I think
Yes, sir.
you understand my concerns and you resolve them. So the motion is for alternative one.
Yes, sir, please.
Make a motion to approve alternative one.
Second.
Commissioner Mr. Deloach, second Mr. Loper, to approve alternative one. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. It carries.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. That's the old business. We'll move to new business. Number 1, consideration to approve to authorize the chairman to sign a landfill letter for Barrister Landing subdivision on Courthouse Road.
Teresa Kincannon, County Planner. I'm here today with this request from the developers of Barrister Landing. This is a second phase that's going to go in behind the current Barrister subdivision on Courthouse Road.
We could put sewer to it.
And we can't put sewer. There's a private water and sewer. I was just sitting there thinking that as you were talking, that here's all this density and it's going to be served by a private provider. In any case, they do need EPD approval, and in order to get that, the EPD requires that the county, the jurisdiction in which it's located, provide a letter certifying that there's no landfill on the site. So the developer's engineer has provided a letter of their survey and certifying that they didn't find a landfill, and all we need for you all to do is to approve the chairman to sign a letter so that they can include that in the application.
This is a different matter. We just said there's no landfill there. We'll get the motion on that. But to a question, how many units is this?
According to the information they submitted last summer, 81 units.
How close is that to our sewer?
You know, you're going to be hearing more about this at your next meeting because they've requested variances for sidewalk and reuse. And when we were looking at the reuse, the variance for reuse water lines, we were looking at distance from county infrastructure, and it is pretty substantial. It is a few miles. And so it was one of those ones where you'll hear more at your meeting.
Okay, so we are going to get a chance to see if we want to service it or not. Still.
You'll be able to talk more about that.
I apologize. We have a motion for alternative. Any questions? If not, motion for alternative one.
Make a motion, approve alternative number 1.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Deloach, second Mr. Loper, approve alternative number 1. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, no. It carries.
That's a motion by Commissioner Loper, second by Commissioner Deloach, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
We have a motion by Mr. Loper.
Yes, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Motion by Mr. Lewis, second by Mr. Deloach, correct? We already have our vote. Item number 2, consideration to approve the final plat and warranty deed for Park West. That's been tabled. So item number 3, consideration to approve to accept the bid and issue a contract to Rain and Shine for upgrades at the Sandy Recreation Complex.
Good evening. Allison Bruton, Purchasing Tech. The county started to work on improvements for the Sandhill Recreation Complex last spring with the addition and replacement of some fencing. This contract is for the continuation of upgrades. A request for quote was issued and posted in the usual places and sent to known vendors. 5 vendors attended the mandatory pre-bid meeting where it was determined that a site visit was necessary. 2 of the original 5 vendors attended that site visit. Bids were received from both vendors who attended the site visit, with Rain and Shine being the lowest bidder with the fee of $128,500 plus $12.50 per cubic yard for the fill. The amount of the fill has been estimated as 60 loads, which is 900 cubic yards. So the contract before you was written not to exceed $139,750. Should additional fill be needed, a change order will be brought before the board for approval. The county attorney has reviewed and approved to form the contract, and SPOS funds are available, and staff recommends alternative 1. Trying to.
Questions or discussion? Take a motion for alternative 1.
Make a motion to approve alternative 1. Second.
Motion by Mr. Floyd, second by Mr. Burdette for alternative number 1. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we're number 5, consideration to approve an access easement agreement with the Effingham County Board of Commissioners in Richmond Pines Property LLC located within 7 subdivision.
Mr. Chairman, this is the easement agreement that Mr. Hyde requested at the last meeting. It's basically, we own a piece of property in south or Southern Hills Plantation, and we have some, I think, utility underneath that. Eric's here, he can confirm that. I think he was the one that sent the email that we're okay granting this access easement over that area. It's basically 30 feet by 180 feet, 30 feet wide, 180 feet deep. There's a restriction in there that the owner will maintain it. They're not going to pave it. It could be gravel if they want. They just can't pave it in case we need to access the pipe that's underneath.
Any questions or discussion? Any motion for alternative 1.
Make a motion to approve alternative number 1. Second.
Motion by Mr. Lopez, second by Mr. Kiefer for alternative number 1. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. It carries. Item number 6, annual presentation and public comment on county stormwater management plans for the municipal sector storm sewer system, MS4.
If you'll give me just a second, Tim's going to help me get the PowerPoint presentation loaded up. There's a map in there that will be useful for part of our discussions. While he's doing that, again, I'm Eric Larson with EOM. Been in front of you before. We are contracted to perform your MS4 annual reporting for a stormwater permit, and we do several of the stormwater tasks within the permit in addition to the annual report. So I'm going to go through this real quick. One of the requirements of your permit is to do a public hearing where you give the community an opportunity to comment on your stormwater management plan. I'll use that term over and over again, and then also the annual report. So we published your stormwater management plan as part of the agenda packet tonight. You were given a draft copy of the report. I've been diligently working on that. It's due on the 15th of February. So after tonight's meeting, we'll be wrapping that report up and getting it submitted. It requires Mr. Callahan's signature on the cover sheet of that. And yes, sir, that's it. Here we go. You don't have a clicker?
No.
Okay, this next. Okay, so we'll move on to the next slide. This is just a summary of the performance of the tasks we perform for you, everything from permit compliance to operations and maintenance. As you're aware, through the Public Works Department, we do all your stormwater maintenance as well, even do floodplain management activities. The next slide, if you'll just skip that one, go ahead. I'm going to briefly talk about what the MS4 program is, and I'm going to go over your annual report, have a couple of comments and slides on enforcement and compliance, and then we'll give an opportunity for comments back to everyone else. On the next slide, as an education of what stormwater management is, when urban land use occurs, it changes the natural environment. The trees get cut down, the fields get plowed under, and we replace those with rooftops, pavement, manicured lawns. We use fertilizer, we have pets, we have cars that leak oil, et cetera, et cetera. And we change the natural environment, and the whole purpose of this program is to get us back to that undeveloped, natural, pristine condition when it comes to the runoff that occurs when it rains, and it picks up these pollutants that we are creating in our man-made environment. Even heat pollution, when water hits that hot pavement in the summer, it changes the temperature, which has a negative impact on aquatic life. And being in a coastal environment, we do have receiving water bodies that are estuaries, saltwater estuaries. They're a blend of salt and fresh water, in some cases brackish water, and changing that balance with even clean, fresh, clean stormwater that's been cleaned. An increased amount of fresh water in a saltwater environment can also have negative impact on plant and aquatic life. On the next slide, we combat that with a whole bunch of engineered best management practices. Some of them are called structural practices, others are non-structural, but we're really good at building something that will clean water. And you'll see detention ponds, stuff buried underground in parking lots, rain gardens, bioswales. You see the whole list of things. During construction, we don't want dirty water, muddy water to leave the site. And most importantly, the last slide is what we're doing tonight, changing behavior of the public and changing their behaviors so that they're more receptive and more cognizant of water pollution. MS4 is a brainchild of the Clean Water Act, started in 1972. The picture in the background is the Cuyahoga River in Ohio that burned extensively for days on end, burning down 2 railroad bridges as a result of a steel mill's water pollution. And that really prompted the 1972 Clean Water Act. As the act has been amended and promulgated through the years, they have what's called the Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System, which is a non-point source pollution program. Unlike a wastewater treatment plant where it's an end-of-pipe type of pollution, non-point source is the parking lot, the lawn. You can't really pinpoint where the pollution's coming from, you just know it shows up in the stream. Effingham County became a Phase 2 designee of the MS4 program back in 2000 when the census came out, and that was a result of density in certain areas of the county, as well as being contiguous to Chatham and Savannah, which became an MS4 year even longer than that. On the next slide, what happens is that you are issued a permit. It's a 5-year permit. You create a stormwater management plan or a SWEP, and that has 6 minimum control measures, and that's what we're really reporting on. That is the nuts and bolts of this program, is doing things within these 6 minimum control measures. And they're listed there. We're going to go through those here over the next few slides. This is a report on what we have done in 2019 to comply with your stormwater management plan and the permit. The first minimum control measure is public education. There's 4 things you're required to do there. We do presentations to public groups. We've done, like the Rotary, employee training is considered a presentation. This is considered a presentation, even though it also meets another check mark box in the permit. And we do community cleanups. We had 2 of those in December that we helped organize, where people got out in the river and they got out on the side of the road and they picked up litter from the stream banks and from the right-of-ways. We've put articles in the newspaper. We've sent emails to the staff We've got a website, or the county has a website that's got plenty of information. If people want to learn more about stormwater, they can go to your website, and even the brochures in your lobby and other public places where if they don't have internet access, they can have that kind of education as well. Second minimum control measure is the public outreach. I mentioned the community events already. Tonight's public meeting is one of those. And then you have a means for the public to call in either by email, voicemail, or using the website to call in concerns, complaints, anything that they see related to pollution of water, that they can get that to us. Illicit discharge, Tim's keeping me on track here. Illicit discharge detection and elimination, IDDE, is your next part. This is one that's one of the more extensive engineering parts of the permit. You have to have a map of your system, and you have to inspect your system. And so on the next slide, what's relevant is that your MS4 is actually a very small portion of your county. It's 2 subdivisions on the southern tip of the county adjacent to the Chatham County. You see those now. One of them is the Rumbling, I'll say that wrong, I'm sure, Rumbling Road, Ziegler Road area, which is in the kind of the bottom left, and then up in the top left is the corner of Hodgeville and Highway 30, Knoll, Conaway. That neighborhood, Lakewood and White Bluff, is the 2 areas that in 2000 met the density for MS4, and they were contiguous to Chatham County. My gut feeling is, I said 2000, I meant 2010, my apologies, going back a few slides there, bad habit. 2020 census is going to be happening this year. It is, in all indications, you have additional areas that will be designated as MS4 if you've seen your growth over the last decades. When that happens, these type of maps are going to have to be made for those additional areas. It is very possible EPD will invoke permit by rule and make the whole county MS4, even areas that are more rural in nature. They have that right if they choose to invoke it. And so this could potentially come, in the years to come, become a big ticket item for the county, and as far as ramping up for compliance and then the annual ongoing inspections and maintenance in these areas. Finishing up IDDE, you're supposed to have a plan, which you do. It's been in place for several years now. You have 32 outfalls where the man-made system enters the natural system, and those you're required to inspect 20% of those per year so that you have 100% through the life of the 5-year permit. EOM performed all 32, 100% during this cycle. We had the time, we had the budget, so we went ahead and just did the entire inspection. We could rest on our laurels and not do it again for another 3 years, or we could continue to do the 20% per year just to kind of be ahead of the curve. Education and the complaint response is similar to the first 2 MCMs, and it follows on with MCM 3. MCM 4 is construction runoff. That's plan review, that's erosion control inspections during construction, and when an inspection fails, it's the whole enforcement mechanism that's in place. You have all of that through ordinance. It's been in place for several years. We've continued on with that. There was no reasons to modify the ordinance this year. Again, citizen complaint is a part of this one as well. The same BMP is used time and time again. And you also required that the people that are performing those inspections are certified. There's a certification program through the state. Between EOM and the county, you have 8 qualified staff members performing inspections. 5th BMP is post-construction BMPs. That's the pictures earlier. It's the ponds, it's the underground vaults, it's the porous pavements. You're required to have that in your code. You do. You're required to have an inventory of that. Back to that map of those 2 subdivisions, you are lucky in the fact that you do not have any post-construction BMPs built since your permit was issued. That's a technicality that you're required to report on and inspect and maintain. So you get off in 2 different ways. It's less time, it's less effort, and it's less money. Obviously that's going to change going forward if you have additional areas pulled into your program. Because you don't have any BMPs, you have no maintenance, you have no enforcement. The other part is the GILID is green infrastructure, low impact development. That's just a green BMP, something that looks more natural than a man-made pond. Again, you have none of those in your system at this time, so that program you get off with a nice not applicable on your report. Next slide is good housekeeping. This is your last MCM. This is looking inward at yourself. They call it good housekeeping or municipal facilities operation. This is where you get into maintaining and cleaning your own system, your own pipes, your catch basins, your ditch. You do that through Public Works. It is required to be inspected. Once again, 20% per year. We did all 100% inspection this year. Again, we were out there. It doesn't take that long to inspect that small area. So we did a full inspection of your entire system this year, and any deficiencies that were found were reported to Public Works, and those were corrected through maintenance. Roadside litter pickup with the inmates at the jail or part of the program. Employee training, disposing of anything we pick up on the side of the road, litter, waste, debris out of ditches, that sort of thing has to be properly disposed of. We report on that. And then the last few bullets in the bottom right corner are related to, again, flood control measures, stormwater ponds, that sort of thing that would be in your system. As I mentioned a second ago, you have none of those in your system, and you have no public buildings in those two neighborhoods. There's no Public Works garage or fire station or anything like that that would have to be inspected for pollution prevention at those facilities, because there's none in your system in those two neighborhoods. Excuse me. Getting real close to finishing up. Enforcement response plan, you have to have one. You do have one. The key to that, just so you know, it's called escalating enforcement. It has first offense, second offense, third offense type of things in there. It really is intended to be more of sugar than salt. The first offense is education. You get written up, you get educated, and you make corrections. The second time you get a slap on your wrist and they stand over your shoulder while you make the repair. Third time you get fined, et cetera, et cetera. And the whole purpose of this program, as Tim will attest to when he sees the final document here in a day or so, it is a very thick report because it is document, document, document. If it didn't get written down, it didn't happen, and you have to prove that all this stuff that I've been mentioning for the last 10 minutes is being done. The last part of the permit is an impaired waters plan. Again, you are very lucky in the fact that your MS4 area has 3 creeks, Black, St. Augustine, and the river Styx. None of those are on the impaired list for Georgia, so you are not required to have an impaired waters plan. And again, very good that you have that, because that means a cost savings for you both in time and consulting fees. I want to real quick just remind you that if you do not comply with this permit, there is consequences. On the next slide, when this permit rolled out in 1999, and you did not come in 1999, but they called it the ramp-up period. So the first 2 or 3 cycles of the permit were what they called ramp-up. They were growing the program, they were maturing the program. There was more slaps on the wrist when you didn't do something right rather than giving you a fine or a penalty. But they had the ability the whole time, this is they being the state or the federal government, to fine you up to $37,500 per day, each day being a separate offense when you're out of compliance. And then on the next slide, I love this example. They probably don't like it up in Richland County, South Carolina, but they failed to do their program. They got fined $1.1 million. It was negotiated down with a 20% discount to $830. But they paid nearly $1 million in fines for not doing their program, and they still had to do everything. So if they had a $2 million program, they paid $3 million when it should have only cost them $2 million. This is serious stuff. Mr. Callanan, he's not going to like this either. When his name goes on that application, if it can be proven that we were purposely negligent, he can go to jail. So we don't want that to happen. In conclusion, on the last slide, I just wanted to say that you have a good program. It is going to be growing over time, I think. Education is going to be the key to get your citizens to understand what they're paying for and why you're doing what you're doing. Plan review, the staff level plan review, and making sure projects are designed and built right starting out is essential. A good inspection and maintenance program is going to be key to make sure that that's being properly inspected over time and any deficiencies found, and then having that enforcement capability. And you do have all of those bullets in place, and you do have a very good program. Probably not as polished and as professional as a financial auditor, but you have a clean bill of health when it comes to your MS4. So at this point, the public is gone, pretty much, but you are supposed to have an opportunity for public input before you close your hearing. There's no action needed other than just receiving comment from the public. And I appreciate your time.
Comment tonight? I'm sure Tim's gonna.
They don't like it.
Okay.
I'm sure Tim's gonna play sovereign immunity. He's gonna point fingers engineer if it's something wrong.
Yeah, hope we have that in our contract. To get us. All right, well, if no further comments, look forward to talking to you again in the
It's
future.
important to hear that we probably need to really move along with looking at a stormwater drainage fee. I hear you saying the whole, it may expand MS4, and this could become a huge expense for us, a big ticket item. And we've talked about it for years, but we probably need to look at that a little closer. That involves you guys or consult somebody to tell us what it looks like, how it's calculated, how it's collected, but we probably need that stormwater drainage fee.
Yes, sir.
Before it's budget year's over.
Consider this a 30-second Super Bowl teaser of your retreat this weekend.
Okay.
When it comes to that particular topic.
Well, that sounds good. Look forward to hearing about it.
All right, thanks very much.
Thank you. Any other questions? We'll close the hearing on this then. There's no action being taken, just a hearing. Move to item number 7, consideration to approve to accept an amended contract with EMS Consultants.
Good evening, Allison Bruton, Purchasing Tech. The county awarded a contract to Colleton Software last July to provide EMS billing services, the previous provider being EMS Consultants. Colleton will not accept anything billed out by a previous vendor, and as EMS Consultants currently is handling 64 monthly accounts for the county, this contract allows them to continue handling those accounts for an annual fee of $3,000. The contract will renew annually with approval of the Board of Commissioners until those accounts are cleared. Either party can terminate this agreement within 30 days or with 30 days written notice prior to the date of expiration. And the county attorney has reviewed and approved to form the contract, and funding is available in the EMS budget. Staff recommends approving alternative 1. Any questions?
Any questions? Have a motion for alternative number 1.
Need a motion to approve alternative 1.
Second.
Motion Mr. Deloach, second Mr. Logan for alternative 1. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion carries. Item number 8, consideration to approve registration for programming via tech assurance for discounted toner for elections.
Yes, sir. In Olivia's absence, I'll be presenting on that as well. The state has changed to a new voting system, now consisting of a paper verifiable backup. The voter makes their selection on a touchscreen ballot marking device, which then generates a printed ballot that is then fed by the voter into a scanner that records their vote. The state has provided the printers, but not the toner. So this program would provide the 185 needed toner cartridges for roughly $109 per toner, which is $20,196.24 total. I also included a quote from Staples and Amazon as well for reference. There's no fee for the registration for the program.
We just join the program that will save us some money.
Absolutely.
Alternative 1 is what's recommended. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve alternative 1.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Burdette, second Mr. Kiefer to approve alternative 1. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And carries.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Item number 9, consideration to approve a professional service agreement for consulting services for the purchasing department.
Yes, the county purchasing agent has recently given notice that she will be remaining with the county until the second week of February, and will be working with her replacement, Allison, until that time. As the purchasing department is one person operation, there is a large amount of information to learn. As such, the county would like to issue an independent agreement for consulting services to allow for a smooth transition with the existing purchasing agent, Fiona Charles. The agreement for the consultant is at a rate of $50 an hour. We will be providing a way, a means for her to communicate with us via IT from her new home in England.
Get a Zoom conference room and it works great. About $10 a month.
The funding will be out of the general fund, and staff is recommending alternative number one.
Any questions? Motion for alternative number one?
Make a motion to approve alternative one.
Motion, Mr. Deloach, second, Mr. Floyd, for alternative one. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. It carries. Item number 10, consideration to approve the second reading of the ordinance to reduce the speed on Crystal Drive.
Yes, this is the second reading, and this is to reduce the speed limit from 35 to 25 miles per hour. And in the immediate future, we will be updating our traffic study, so hopefully we'll be able to enforce it at a lower speed limit.
Sounds good. Do you have a motion for alternative one?
Make a motion to approve alternative one. Second.
Motion by Mr. Burdette, and I did not hear the second.
Second.
Second, Mr. Whitaker, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. It carries. Item number 11, consideration to approve the second reading to amend the Charter 74-traffic of Effingham County Code of Ordinances.
Yes, this is regarding large truck traffic that occurs on county roads. In addition to large trucks that weigh more, passenger vehicles and light trucks, resulting in increased pavement failures. The county currently has traffic signage restricting trucks by weight, but are unable to certify scales. This would create the restriction by class of the vehicle and give adequate protections to existing industries for delivery and origination points.
Okay, do you have a motion to approve the second reading, which is alternative one?
Make a motion to approve alternative number one.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Deloach, second by Mr. Whitaker to approve alternative number one. I do backwards again. Mr. Deloach, second Mr. Deloach, to approve alternative number one. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. It carries. People throwing the curveball, usually goes the other direction. That's very good. All right, how about reports from staff?
I've got no report, and we are going to, we do have something I need to discuss in executive session. Looking forward to the groundbreaking. Oh, I'm sorry, you're correct on that. We are trying to schedule a groundbreaking for the gymnasium. We had our pre-construction meeting yesterday with RW Allen, the construction company, and we are looking at the Wednesday or Thursday of the week of February 17th. So I think that's the 19th and 20th, if I'm correct, at 10 a.m. in the morning.
February 17th.
Well, it would be, I'm sorry, the 19th or the 20th.
19th or the 20th, the Wednesday or Thursday.
19th or the 20th. Yeah, I can.
I won't be here all that week, but that's fine. Go ahead and you want to slow down the process.
So Wednesday or Thursday better for anybody on that? Or?
I prefer Wednesday, but can do Thursday. So if anybody absolutely can't do Wednesday, I can do Thursday.
It doesn't matter to me.
Okay, we'll do Wednesday at 10 a.m. on the 19th.
Will we have, I know we talked about this, but some type of penny sign, something?
Yes.
Gas plus mileage.
In addition to the signage that the construction company is going to provide at the site and on 21 for the construction, we're going to work on getting some sort of signage for the event as well, because this is a SPLOST event funded project, and we want to make sure folks know that their money is being spent as we told them it would be.
We specify a time for that?
What's that?
Specify a time?
10 a.m.
10 a.m. Okay.
Anything else, Tim?
That's all I got.
Stephanie?
Just very briefly, in your folders, I have put together information for our retreat on Thursday. If you will, if you can pull it for just a moment, what is not noted is the locations for those retreats. The location for the retreat. If you can pull that information from your folder, and you can go to our Saturday retreat and just jot stateroom on the 3rd floor. That's where it will be on Saturday.
Stateroom?
Mm-hmm. And Sunday will be the boardroom. And you all are aware we're scheduled to start the retreat at 2, so we'll need to arrive some point before that time. Sunday's the boardroom.
I got you, okay.
Okay. The next upcoming event is the ACCG Annual Conference. That's held every year in Savannah. That's where you all typically get your continuing education credits. So as soon as possible, because these classes go very quickly, as soon as they open it up, usually it's gone. So if you could look at the information that I provided and let me know which courses you're interested in. This will be on the next agenda for approval, but I'll go ahead and get everything taken care of as far as classes. You can let me know as soon as possible.
You can go ahead and you look, you kind of know where you're kind of running out of
Okay.
options.
So you want me to just choose for you?
Give me the options that I have today.
You can pretty much choose whatever. You're pretty much.
Still very.
So go to calendars, that's April 24th through the 27th. April 24th through the 27th.
That's the SSG.
In Savannah. I'm sorry?
Is it like Wednesday through Friday?
Yes.
Classes are usually Friday and Monday.
I'll tell you exactly.
It depends on class.
What's the date in April? I'm sorry.
April 24th through the 27th. So that is Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and classes will be on Friday and Monday.
You got a little panther right there, you.
Didn't see it. No. Okay.
That's all I have.
Any other staff? Any reports tonight? Anything from board commissioners?
I'm good to go.
Looking forward to being a proactive state of mind this weekend. A lot of times we're reacting to everything that comes at us, so it's nice to get together and plan sometimes.
It'd be good to hear follow up on our last planning and taking some of the things we got and move on.
You have any quick update on the roundabout?
You know, an updated
Nothing, I'm just an idea of.
It's on schedule to reopen February 20. They said they may have just a couple of housekeeping items to finish up after they reopen the road, but it's on schedule.
That's that 45-day schedule, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
February 20th?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We're about 31 days into it now.
So the road will be open
February 4th, I mean, January
20th, but they'll still have some construction still left to do.
Yes, sir. The term 98% complete came up today. They said they're going to have everything done, but they may have to end up opening it up and then doing a one lane at a time while they do the striping. And they have a specialty sign. The signage package is custom signs that give you the directional arrows, and that's custom ordered from a long place, and they said they may not get it here by the 20th. But it's just that kind of stuff. It'll be substantially complete by the 20th.
Just a question, Tim, where are we at on speaking with either A&R speak to them at all, kind of put them on alert today, probably need some road improvements out there.
We do have, I've got a meeting on Thursday with that project manager and Omnitrax on that. One of the subjects is going to come up is the truck ordinance and how it affects that. So we'll see from them. We have not signed off on the letter saying that their recall improvements are complete yet, and that'll be one of the issues we discuss.
I thought it was important today in our
Yeah.
Be aware.
to realize it as it come up, when it's too late to do it.
And it's good timing because I can bring a copy of our newly passed ordinance as well.
I think the ordinance covers as far as truck traffic goes, and the way it's written, but, the road condition, what, certainly more.
Right. But the trucks, the amount of trucks that they're going to have on there is going to cause the quicker deterioration of that road. Sure.
The update on Stagecoach Road, just since I brought it up in the last meeting, and Eric may chime in on the improvements to the road and what we're doing. That's the sand pit track and road.
Sure. Stagecoach Road has 3 sand pits on it. Currently, all of them are in Effingham County, although one of them does exit onto Stagecoach Road in Chatham County. We've spoken, code enforcement has spoken to all the owners out there, let them know. One of them did try an attempt to improve the entrance to prevent mud, but our view is it does not meet EPD requirements. EPD will be out there tomorrow. We've been kind of waiting for this visit for a while to actually look at that and Stagecoach and a few other of the pits in the county that we've been getting complaints on to make sure that they're in compliance. There's also a drainage issue out there that was discovered when we were out there looking at the site. That's also being addressed as well.
And Meldrum, any update on Meldrum noise issue? I haven't got any complaints.
This is the Interfor site, and when they put a, I forget what they call it, it's like a cyclone fan system in to stop one of the other issues of the complaint, which was the amount of dust that was spreading throughout the neighborhood. It generated a rather annoying low-frequency noise that did not make the surrounding residents happy. We spoke with their public relations person in Atlanta, set up meetings. They've done numerous changes to the site, including starting the construction on a sound barrier, lowering the frequency of the fan itself to change the noise. I believe they put a sound attenuation blanket on it and changed the direction of the ventilation pipe of the fan. I have not had a complaint from there in going on 4 weeks. So.
I don't know if we followed up, but we went out to take a look.
I did talk to them, and they haven't completed the, they just kind of put the noise wall, but they're waiting to do it, and so temporarily they've stacked some wood there to create a temporary one until they finish it. But the low frequency noise is more sensitive to some people than others, so I've been having a hard time getting out there and hearing it. Every time I've gone out there, I haven't heard it. So, but apparently they must be doing something right. So,
I appreciate that.
Anything else? Anything from anyone over here? Chief? Okay. I understand we have a need for executive session tonight, so I'll entertain a motion for executive session, discuss personnel, property, and pending litigation.
So we.
Mr. Ward, second, Mr. Latham. Everybody say aye? All in favor? Okay. executive session?
Yes, sir.
Motion to go back in regular session.
Second.
Mr. Floyd, take the second, Mr. Burdette. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. And we're back in regular session. Last time on the agenda is consideration to approve the January 21st, 2020 commission meeting executive session minutes. Motion to approve.
So moved.
Motion, Mr. Burdette, second, Mr. Floyd, to approve. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. They are approved. Any other business?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion, Mr. Baker, to adjourn. Second, by Mr. Floyd. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. We are adjourned.